Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we will take a look at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 29, Text 19. Mad-dharmaṇo guṇair etaiḥ parisaṁśuddha āśayaḥ puruṣasyāñjasābhyeti śruta-mātra-guṇaṁ himam mad-dharmaṇo guṇair etaiḥ parisaṁśuddha āśayaḥ puruṣasyāñjasābhyeti śruta-mātra-guṇaṁ himam mad-dharmaṇo guṇair etaiḥ parisaṁśuddha āśayaḥ puruṣasyāñjasābhyeti śruta-mātra-guṇaṁ himam. Others, please. Vaishnavis. Word to word. Mad-dharmaṇaḥ of my devotee, guṇair with the attributes, etaiḥ, these, parisaṁśuddha, completely purified, āśayaḥ, consciousness, puruṣasya, of a person, añjasā, I have a fraught relationship with microphones. Añjasā, instantly. Abhyeti, approaches. Śruta, by hearing. Mātra, simply. guṇam, quality. He, certainly. Mam, me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When one is fully qualified with all these transcendental attributes and his consciousness is thus completely purified, he is immediately attracted simply by hearing my name or hearing of my transcendental quality. Responsively, please. When one is fully qualified with all these transcendental attributes, and his consciousness is thus completely purified, he is immediately attracted simply by hearing my name or hearing of my transcendental quality. Srila Prabhupada's purport. In the beginning of this instruction, the Lord explained to his mother that mad-guṇa-śruti-mātreṇa, simply by hearing of the name, quality, form, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is immediately attracted. A person becomes fully qualified with all transcendental qualities by following the rules and regulations as recommended in different scriptures. We have developed certain unnecessary qualities by material association, and by following the above process, we become free from that contamination. To develop transcendental qualities, as explained in the previous verse, one must become free from these contaminated qualities. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukhaṁ karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim Yatkripātamahang Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitang Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyang Dadati Svapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Pancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. The verse again, mad-dharmaṇo guṇair etaiḥ parisaṁśuddha āśayaḥ puruṣasyāñjasābhyeti śruta-mātra-guṇaṁ. When one is fully qualified with all these transcendental attributes, and his consciousness is thus completely purified, he is immediately attracted simply by hearing my name or hearing of my transcendental quality. So this is a theme, a leitmotif, if you like, that runs throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, but also in other scriptures as well. We know one of the core verses from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text 9, Mat-chitta mad-gata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantas chamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are surrendered to me, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss enlightening one another and conversing about me. And I particularly like the last paragraph of Srila Prabhupada's purport to that verse. He says the Srimad Bhagavatam is also full of such narration about the relationship between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Is there anything else in Srimad Bhagavatam? That's the sum and substance of Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is very dear to the devotees. In this narration, there's nothing about material activities, sense gratification, or liberation. They're mentioned, but they're often mentioned to create a contrast between bhakti and absolutely everything else. This is one of my favorite posts to pound about bhakti yoga. Srimad Bhagavatam is the only narration in which the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord and his devotees is fully described. Thus, the realized souls in Krishna consciousness take continual pleasure in hearing such transcendental literatures, just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in association. So this is a natural thing, and we see, as Srila Prabhupada points out in his purport, Lord Kapila Dev tells Devahuti something quite similar. He talks about mad-guṇa-śruti-mātreṇa. So this is something that's attractive to devotees at the beginning of our practice and becomes even more attractive as our practice matures. In his commentary on this verse, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur observes that this attraction is the same as actually attaining the Lord. So this is a very powerful thing. And so this is, as it's presented here, it's presented in a sense as the fruit of assiduous practice, of properly practicing, as Srila Prabhupada says, where'd it go? Or by following the process, by actually observing the regulations, the rules and regulations of Bhakti Yoga. So we know that among the 64 main angas of sadhana bhakti, practical devotional service, prescribed by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that 5 are particularly powerful, and they're repeated again at the end for emphasis. So the first is, as it's presented in Chaitanya Charitamrita, is sadhu sangha. This next is nam kirtan. So nam kirtan includes nam, rup, guna, and lila. And when we're engaged in kirtan, naturally we're engaged in shravana. And then also bhagavat shravan, hearing about the Lord. So this is, in this grouping, this is at the center of these things. And then there's living in a holy place, living in a place of pilgrimage, like Dwarka, Mathura. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to reside there our entire lives. Srila Prabhupada points out in the Nectar Devotion, if you can stay there a month, you can stay there a couple of weeks, you can stay there a few days. But this is a practice. He points out elsewhere that if we can't do that, we can make our homes holy places of pilgrimage, by making the deity of the Lord the center of life in that place. And that brings us to the last of those 5, which is worshiping the deity with reverence and faith. So, at the core is hearing and chanting about Krishna. This is our main practice. Therefore, people call us Hare Krishna people. And we see from the Srimad Bhagavatam that unless such an attraction is developed, whatever it is we do is simply useless. There's this wonderful verse in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavatam. This is one of the verses addressing Varnashram. So the Bhagavatam makes it plain that even Varnashram Dharma, if it doesn't actually awaken a taste for Harikatha, for discussions, hearing and in participating in discussions of the Lord's transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes, then it's absolutely nothing but a waste of time. Dharma svanustita pungsang vishwaksena kathasuya notpadayed yadiratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Shrama, useless labor. Now, this is another place where that distinction is drawn between bhakti and everything else. There's a couple of verses in the 5th chapter of the 1st canto that I like to go to a lot that do that. But here, without awakening that taste, shrama eva hi kevalam, certainly nothing but a waste of time. And so, that's an important point to note. And Krishna himself says in Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, Jata shraddho matkathasu nirvinna sarva karmasu parityage piyanisvaraha tato bhajeta mam prita shraddha lurdha nishchaya jushamanas chatan kaman dukho dharkangs chakarbhayan. Having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, and still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he sometimes is engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. So, this is another distinction between bhakti and everything else. In order to achieve the result in karma, in jnana, in yoga, they have to be executed perfectly. And the results are temporary, especially karma. We see in the Bhagavad Gita and throughout the Bhagavatam that when we engage in karma, which includes varnashrama dharma, when we engage in karma, even if we attain the highest possible goal of engaging in karma, which is attaining Swarga, the heavenly planets. When the pious credit runs out, Shine Punya Martya Lokam Vishanti. I always tend to do this, and I guess it's kind of like you go back down the drain, come back to a dump like this. But Krishna emphasizes several places, 3 places in the Bhagavad Gita, twice in one chapter, that once one attains bhakti, once one attains the Lord's abode, then there is no return to the material plane. And what was that? I had a thought that came and then it ran away from me. So I was talking about how it doesn't need to be done perfectly. But we see several times in Srimad Bhagavatam our attention drawn to the fact that there's no once we engage in bhakti, there's no chance of falling down. We may waver. We may appear to deviate somewhat from the path. As Srila Prabhupada says in the 5th chapter, by bad association, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, commenting on that same verse, says poor determination. I think the two are intimately linked. Still, there's no chance of failure in bhakti. If we engage in jnana or yoga and don't observe celibacy, we're not going to get the result. Everything has to be done perfectly. And we see in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras the rigorous path of meditation that has to be engaged in to realize the Supersoul. And then Patanjali suggests an alternative. Then he says, or else we can engage in Ishvara Pranidhana, surrender to the Supreme Lord. So we can take that troublesome path of yoga, Ashtanga yoga, which has to be practiced perfectly, including a life of celibacy. And jnana, the same thing. Complete celibacy is required to attain that the goal of that so-called moksha of the path of jnana. But there aren't any such requirements in bhakti yoga. Simply, it's required that we control our senses and we maintain the association of devotees and engage in the processes given by the spiritual master. And that happens, as we see here, when there's some disgust with the material world. Earlier in the 11th canto, in the 3rd chapter, King Nimi, having met these 9 sages, 9 sons of Rishabhadev, who were wandering and came across King Nimi as he was engaged in a sacrifice. King Nimi thought, oh, these are obviously direct associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I have some things on my mind. Let me present them to these sages. So he asked a question of each of the sages and got an extensive answer and reply. And he asked Prabuddha, how is it that somebody who's completely absorbed in material life can actually become free from material contamination and attain life's real goal? And so Prabuddha tells him, he reminds him of the absolute futility of all material endeavor. And he covers all the things that we want: sex, wealth, and even swarga. And he says, when one sees the futility of these, then that person needs to take shelter of a spiritual master. Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jigyasu shayutama shabde pare chanishnatam brahmanyu pashamashra. He has to find someone who is conversant in the scriptures, able to explain them coherently to others, and who themselves are immersed in transcendence, completely immersed in transcendence. So when that happens, then we can completely take shelter of Krishna Katha. Then the real pleasure of Krishna Katha is something that we can actually realize in our lives. And I wanted to wrap up with, I think, one of the supreme glorifications of Hari Katha that we find in Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is in the Gopi Gita. This is the 9th verse of the 31st chapter. So the context here is Krishna is playing his flute, the gopis drop everything in the middle of whatever they're doing, and they run to the forest to meet with Krishna and dance with him in the moonlight. and then Krishna abandons them and apparently he has abandoned them and chosen one gopi as special. And then they follow the footprints and find that he's actually dumped her too. So this is the gopi's lamentation. I remember back in 1970 when the first volume of Krishna book came out, after I read this chapter in the Krishna book, chapter 31 in the Krishna book, I thought, the gopis are the original blues singers. This is the ultimate blues. So in text 9 they sing, and any depiction of the gopis engaged in singing Gopi Gita, you'll always find Krishna hiding somewhere listening. One picture I've seen, he's up in the tree, another he's hiding behind the tree, and he's listening, he's digging it. Antavakatamritam tapta jivanam kavirbiritam kalmasapaham Shravana mangalam srimaratatam uvigrananti je buridhajana. The nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul of those suffering in this material world. These narrations, transmitted by learned sages, eradicate one's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune on whoever hears them. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Certainly, those who spread the message of Godhead are most munificent. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on this verse is interesting. So often in his commentaries he'll present a sort of dialogue. Sometimes there's a samshaya or a doubt presented and then it's answered by the original speaker. So here he has a sort of dialogue. Who can describe the sweetness of the words coming from your mouth? It is indescribable. Even words about your name and form, coming from the mouths of other people, are also more relishable than the amrita of swarga or liberation. This is the import of this verse. And then he has this dialogue, the gopis. Your speech is nectar. What kind of nectar? It gives life to people who, burned by samsara and the greatest diseases, who are burned by samsara and the greatest diseases. Your name and form are glorified by devotees like Dhruva and Prahlad. And these are kind of paraphrasing some of the phrases in the verse. Giving life to those burned by samsara and the greatest diseases, tapta jivanam. And this is kavi bhiriditam. And he says, my Lord, he continues, my Lord, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your lotus feet or hearing about your glories from pure devotees is so unlimited that it is far beyond the stage of Brahmananda, wherein one thinks himself merged in the impersonal Brahman as one with the Supreme. Since Brahmananda is also defeated by the transcendental bliss derived from devotional service, then what to speak of the temporary blissfulness of elevating oneself to the heavenly planets, which is ended by the separating sword of time. Although one may be elevated to the heavenly planets, he falls down in due course of time. The nectar of your topics destroys the effects of all sin, kalmasa apaharanam, up to prarabdha karma. So this is all 4 stages of reactions to material activities. Aprarabdha, kuta, bija, prarabdha, all destroyed. The nectar of svarga does not destroy sin. Rather, it increases desire, which is the cause for sin. The nectar of liberation does not destroy the prarabdha papa, though it does destroy the aprarabdha kuta and bija papa. The nectar of your topics are most auspicious to hear. Shravana mangalam, because just by hearing the ultimate goal becomes attractive and achieved. There it is again. It's attractive and achieved at the same time. Bhakti is the process, and it's also the goal. This is not so with the nectar of swarga and moksha. The nectar of your topics being preached by the speaker bestows all wealth up to prema, srimad-atatam. The other two nectars do not do this. Those who accept this nectar or glorify you in kirtan are bestowing the greatest treasure. Though one may give that person everything, that cannot repay the debt due to him. And this brings to mind the 7 purposes for which Srila Prabhupada established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It's all about creating facility for devotees to get together and relish the sound vibration of the topics of Krishna, or the words spoken by Krishna, and to share those with others. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur shares another meaning of the verse. Actually, he flips it. Another meaning of the verse is as follows. So this is at the moment, the gopis being a little huffy. If you show yourself, then your words become sweet. Otherwise, your words have no meaning. Your words, discussion of your name, form, and pastimes become a cause of death. So instead of kata amritam, they become kata mritam. And so he would ask, Vishwanath suggests that he asks, how? The response, by those descriptions, life becomes full of pain in separation, tapta jivanam. Another meaning of jivana is water. By those descriptions, we become like water sprinkled in hot oil, tapta. You know what happens? If you drop water, you got your wok full of ghee ready to fry your jalebis or something, and if you drop some water in there, you get this explosion. Or halava makers know this, right? You want, this is one of my favorite preparations to make halava. So you want to toast the suji in the butter or ghee until it's really toasted, and the ghee is going to be really hot, and it's so hot that you get this kind of like consistency of wet sand. And then when you pour the water, the syrup, into that, you get this explosion. And I used to yell out, "Fire in the hole!" when I did that. My family got really tired of that one. It just became another dad joke. If that is so, then, Krishna responds, why are these descriptions praised in the scriptures? The response, poets alone praise you and no one else. Kavir-biriditam. They describe you by habit and nothing else. By hearing about you, one develops pain in separation. By experiencing this pain, one burns up envious sin. Kalmasha apaham. So our sins become destroyed by the pain of separation. Though by hearing about you, Vedic rites become indestructible, when intelligent persons see that hearing about you brings suffering, they will no longer hear. Blind men, mad after wealth, hoping that everyone will die through hearing, spend money and establish speakers of the Puranas in various places to spread topics about you. Therefore, that person on earth who sings your glories destroys many people. Thus, by spreading the poison of these topics through recitation, while sitting peacefully, they are actually greater killers than murderers. Thus, intelligent persons destroy these reciters. So by hearing about Krishna, our attachment to the material world, our attachment to wealth, knowledge, beauty, all these things, ultimately becomes destroyed, and practically our lives are ended. So they're saying that, we're so foolish that we can't resist the call of your flute, but anyone with any sense at all won't have anything to do with you, because it's just going to bring pain. So the gopis have a problem. We have a problem. We have difficulty remembering Krishna. the gopis have a problem forgetting Krishna. So we see the depth of their love by the richness of their response to glorifying Harikatha. Time's up. I'll stop and open things up for any discussion, comments, questions. Archita Prabhu?
Thank you, Maharaj, for a very interesting presentation. And just a note to the devotees, Maharaj is giving class again tomorrow because he's leaving Friday morning.
What?
Just one question, if you don't mind revealing. There's so many sources of the Acharya commentaries. I'm just wondering which one do you recommend or prefer?
Well, I'm particularly aware of two sources of the Acharya's commentaries. One would be Bhanu Swami's translations of Sarartha Varshini. And that's what I have. One of my friends took the trouble for I don't know how long, how many hours a day for how many months or years, to integrate that with Srila Prabhupada's purport by cutting pages out, scanning them, running an optical character recognition program, and bringing them so that to make it searchable. And in the 10th cantos, it also includes Jiva Goswami's and Sanatana Goswami's commentaries as well throughout the 10th canto. I actually had the pleasure of editing a commentary on the Rasa Panchadhyaya a few years ago for Touchstone. For someone. I can't remember who it was now. And I can't remember the name of the devotee who translated the commentaries, but it also included the commentaries of more acharyas than I can remember in some of the verses. There would be 6 or 7 or 8 commentaries. I think including Sridhar, in the 10th canto, in the Rasa Panchadhyaya, including Sridhar Swami's as well. And that's available, it's called a symphony of commentaries or something like that. So that's also, but Bhanu Swamis are widely available, and I think available in Kindle format for those who don't have a lot of space like me. I live in a 10 by 10 hut, and so I'm very grateful. Even though I have a terrible relationship with the digital world, I'm at the same time very grateful for digital versions of all these wonderful literatures so that I can carry them around over my shoulder.
Thank you, Maharaj.
There are occasional editing problems in Bhanu Swami's because he works quite swiftly. His catalog is over 160 translations, and so and I understand that many of these works, like the Sandarbhas and things, are also being translated and will be presented by the BBT as well. But for now, I think Bhanu Swamis are the most accessible. Pragupati Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was just wondering if you could kind of dumb it down a bit for us. In the material world, if you have affection for somebody and you're able to be with them, that's happiness. And if you're not able to be with them, you become less happy or unhappy. And but in the spiritual world, like the gopis, they had affection for Krishna, and when they're with him, they're happy. And somehow or another, when they're not with him, they're more happy. And that's because you mentioned we have a problem remembering Krishna. The gopis have a problem forgetting Krishna. Well, problem means not happy. If you have a problem, you're not happy. But at the same time, we're told that that's the highest happiness. So could you kind of like, as I said, dumb it down, put it so the layman...
When the gopis, and when all the residents of Vrindavan, but especially the gopis, can't be with Krishna, there is acute pain. But that pain is experienced as even higher bliss than being with Krishna. And part of that is the anticipation of meeting him again. So that's experienced by them as the highest bliss. So it looks like pain, it sounds like pain. I mean, when I talk about the Gopi Gita, I sometimes, they're glorifying Krishna and criticizing Krishna at the same time. In the second verse of the Gopi Gita, they accuse Krishna of murder. And by implication, at least through Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the perspective of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, here they're accusing anyone who broadcasts the message of Krishna as being a mass murderer. So, but that's killing material desires. It's natural, when we feel affection, it's natural to feel pain when we can't be with that person. But what happens? We talk about them all the time, right? Especially when that love is new. This is something, this is kind of a new devotees kind of a thing, new convert. Pardon?
You might not be in a position to talk, but at least you're going to be thinking.
Yeah, always thinking. And whatever you see reminds you of them. Whatever we see reminds, the gopis are like that with Krishna for their entire life, every moment of their lives, all the residents of Vrindavan. And when Uddhava came back to Vrindavan, he saw that everyone was like practically lifeless and a little mad. Radharani has this wonderful conversation with a bumblebee, and frankly, she's just babbling madness. But that madness is the madness of love, and that is the goal of life. We're crazy about enjoying in the material world, and the actual opposite of that is not being sane, but being crazy about Krishna, crazy about serving Krishna.
Is that what they call Vipralamba Seva?
Vipralamba Seva, yeah. Srila Prabhupada has told us on many occasions that this is the highest. Service and separation is actually the highest thing. In a sense, Krishna never left Vrindavan because the residents of Vrindavan, their minds are all Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mam namaskuru is sometimes explained as make yourself an offering to Krishna. Just as Krishna says in the 9th chapter, yat karoshi yadashnasi yadjahoshi dadasi. Whatever it is you do that as an offering to me. Make our very selves an offering. That's the meaning of the tridanda that Vaishnava sannyasis carry. The 3 rods symbolize dedication of work, words, and thoughts to the Lord. And the Gaudiya Vaishnavas carry, we wrap a 4th rod in that danda. And that symbolizes dedication of our very self to the Lord's service. And that position in life doesn't depend on having a funny name or wearing funny clothes or anything like that. Prabhupada says many times that regardless of your situation in life, if our work, words, and thoughts are completely dedicated to Krishna, that's real sannyas. Anything else? I think Krishna is waiting in another form. So, thank you all so much. Grantha Raja Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Gaur Bhakti.